Live from Earth, it's Space Radio. I'm Paul Sutter, astrophysicist at Stony Brook University and the Flatiron Institute. And for the next half hour, your agent to the stars. We've got an amazing, boy, I am like out of breath. I am so excited for tonight's guest. I will introduce her in just a little bit, but I know you need to know how the show works, and so that's what we're going to do. This show lives on listener questions. We record every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern here at Spaceman Studios in New York City. So leave a voicemail to get your question on the air. You can also follow along live with our space cadets tuning in right now from literally around the world. I suppose some time zones are underrepresented or not represented at all. I don't believe anyone from Antarctica is tuning in tonight. That could change at any minute now, but all are welcome. Now, space cadets, listeners, listen, this is going to be a fun show. I'm so thrilled to speak to our next guest on tonight's Ask a Spaceman. It's Moya Mcteer. And Moya, I'm going to apologize in advance if I ever call you Moira, because I'm watching a little bit too much of Schitt's Creek. I'm catching up on it, but I'm gonna do my best. It's Moya Mcteer. She grew up in the middle of the woods in rural Pennsylvania without running water. Midwest represent right there. From there, she went to Harvard University, where she became the first person in the school's history to study both astrophysics and folklore and mythology. Now I have your interest, don't I? Now she's pursuing her PhD in astronomy at Columbia University in New York City, studying how the Milky Way structure influences exoplanet populations. Outside of research, Moya has written a science fiction novel, designed an exhibit for the New York Hall of Science, and given more than 100 talks and performances about science. Her website is moyamcteer.com. And Moya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh, it's so good to be here. That was a very nice introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. I did not write that. Nancy wrote that. And she's very, very good at writing guest bios, isn't she?
She's good at everything she does, I think.
So Moya, I have to ask right off the bat, how you doing? COVID is in New York City, kind of hard. I've experienced that firsthand myself. How you doing?
I mean, the answer changes every day. If you had asked me yesterday, I wouldn't have been able to answer. I was crying all of yesterday. But
a lot of crying happened yesterday.
So much crying. But today I'm feeling pretty good. I worked on my dissertation today and it wasn't horrible. So I'm feeling great.
So dissertation, so you're close to the finish line.
I am, yeah. I'm set to defend in April.
Now the saying is, first of all, congratulations, because you are going to earn your PhD. For those of you who don't know, the dissertation is, the defense is the last step, where you have your giant dissertation, this book that you wrote about your personal journey through the universe.
Yeah.
And you defend it in front of a committee. And supposedly the hardest part of getting your PhD is actually organizing the committee itself.
I have my committee set.
So you're done. You just earned a PhD. We're just going to call you Dr. Mcteer right now because you did it. You did the hardest part. What is the subject of your dissertation?
Well, based on the title that I wrote earlier today, it's called "Why Are We Here?" Here in italics, constraining the Milky Way's galactic habitable zone. So there's,
now we know about habitable zones around stars. Talk about the Milky Way habitable zone.
Yeah, the idea of the galactic habitable zone came around in like the 70s or 80s. And the idea was that there are probably places in the galaxy where habitable planets are most likely to form, based on a few different criteria. You can't prove that, but you can try to find places where we're pretty sure habitable planets won't form based on, proximity to a supernova explosion. If you're near one of those, that's a sign that life probably isn't going to take hold. Or just being around a lot of stars because they give off really high amounts of dangerous radiation if you're too close to them. And so those things were what they were studying in the 80s. Now we have beautiful data about the position and motion of stars around the galaxy thanks to the Gaia mission. And so I use Gaia data and take a dynamics approach to the galactic habitable zone, trying to figure out if like the motion of things is affecting habitable planets in any way.
And can we get a little spoiler here for your
Yeah.
dissertation? Do the motions of stars affect the habitability of planets?
They do. They really do. Mostly my research is saying that the bulge of the Milky Way, the central region of our galaxy, is a bad place to focus our search for life. I found in a paper I published a few months ago that 80%, 80% of stars in the Milky Way bulge have close encounters with other stars that could potentially rip planets away from the systems.
So that's unfortunate because the core of the galaxy is where there's a large fraction of stars.
About 30%, but we still have a lot of stars in the disk. Our sun is in the disk of the galaxy. If you aren't familiar with the galaxy's anatomy, if you don't breathe and eat and sleep Milky Way anatomy like I do, I think of the galaxy as a pancake, and all of the stars and the gas and the dust that we see are in the pancake. They're like blueberries or chocolate chips. But all of my work focuses on the middle of the pancake, which is where the analogy kind of breaks down, because it's actually a spherical bulge in the middle and not just a flat region.
Okay, so it's a very poorly made pancake.
Yeah, exactly. It's
with
a pancake with really thick batter that you pile up in the middle and then blueberries on the outside.
We could spend an hour going down this analogy. So the center of the Milky Way is kind of bad news in terms of habitability because of all these close encounters. And these close encounters eject planets.
They can.
Oh.
Yeah, we aren't totally sure. It's not like we can see what's happening in the center of the galaxy, but we can run simulations. And based on those simulations, if you have stars flying close enough to each other at the right speed and at the right angle and with the right mass ratio, there are a bunch of caveats, right? But if you have this happening, then it could strip planets away from their host stars or interrupt the planet formation process altogether.
I see. What about the other edge of the habitable zone, the outskirts of the galaxy?
Oh, there's just like not much happening there. It's difficult to define the edge because the galaxy kind of just tapers off, and there's no real definable edge to it, and so I don't focus there. But there also just aren't a lot of stars by the time you get that far away from the center of the Milky Way.
Got it. So this is the main subject of your dissertation research, and you obviously have a very productive scientific life, doing the whole research thing and dissertation thing and thesis thing and talking to your peers and writing papers, but you also have a whole other secret identity.
I do. I do.
So during the day, you are Moya Mcteer, graduate student at Columbia University, astrophysicist. But by night, you are still Moya Mcteer, but you're doing other things. What are you doing?
I do science communication in any format I can find it. I host a podcast. I am writing a book right now about the Milky Way. I teach classes about fictional world building, which is what my podcast is about. Can you tell I'm like weirdly uncomfortable talking about myself and what I do? Because I'm not doing this very well.
Get used to it.
Thanks.
Because you're an interesting person.
Thank you. So the podcast is called Exolore. It's all about fictional world building, but using facts to imagine these fictional worlds.
Ooh.
And it's really rooted in my two fields that I studied in college. In fact, the word exolore, the name of the podcast, is a portmanteau of exoplanet, which is what I studied in college, and folklore, which is the other thing I studied in college.
Yes. So what brought you to study those two subjects at Harvard, and how do you see them blending together? Like, you give us an example of what we might encounter in the Exolore podcast.
Yeah. How I got into it, the answer is kind of disappointing. Food. I got into it because of food. The folklore department.
Food is never disappointing.
It's true. But it might not be a satisfying answer to, why did you make this decision about your life? The folklore department had a lot of tea and cakes and cookies, and the astro department had a lot of pizza, and through some like weird topsy-turvy confluence of events, I ended up studying both of them. That's the short of it. What type of things can you expect from exolore? Well, we do a lot of different things on the show, but the base of it is that space influences our culture in weird ways that we don't think about all the time. Like the clothes that we're wearing right now are different from the clothes that we wear at other times of the year because of the weather, and that is directly related to how our planet is oriented towards the sun and how we orbit around it. And so in the show, in Exolore, I try to make people think about these fundamental properties of our world that we often just don't think about, and then figure out how it relates to our everyday lives.
That is That's just cool. That's just cool. Related to that, I have a question here from the space guest, from Russell, who's asking about Aboriginal cave paintings. I'm assuming he's meaning the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. Do these cave paintings or any cave paintings around the world depict real astronomical events in our ancient past?
Yeah, there are definitely examples of that happening around the world. This is a field called archaeoastronomy, archaeology and astronomy combined. It's studying the knowledge of indigenous people and older civilizations, the knowledge that they left behind of the night sky. So we aren't the first people who have tracked the motions of stars and planets across the sky. People have been doing that for thousands and thousands of years. One example that I can think of, although I think this is apocryphal, I think this has been debunked, but there's a cave painting somewhere, and I don't know the details, but astronomers and archaeoastronomers used to think that it was showing a supernova explosion, and I think we have since figured out that it's not true, but there are other examples of cave paintings of real supernovae that are real.
Nice. I think I know the one you're referring to. It's in New Mexico in Chaco Canyon. And I've seen it, and
right.
There's like a handprint, and there's a big bright star, and there's also a crescent moon. It could be like, based on what I've read, it's like possible, but it's not exactly conclusive because there just isn't enough context for it.
Yeah.
So what role do you see mythology and folk stories playing in modern day science, or is this something that is just a part of our past?
No, I use folklore whenever I can to communicate science, because in my mind, folklore and mythology, they were humankind's first attempt at science. We look at myths, like if you look at the ancient Greek myths or Norse myths or whatever, they seem totally old and outdated and like nonsensical. The idea that you could believe that an eclipse is like a giant wolf out there eating the sun, like that sounds ridiculous. But when you stop and think about the information that people had available at the time, and the fact that these myths were their way of trying to make sense of the world around them, and it is like science. And so I try to bridge those two in that way, and show people, here's something that people have been telling stories about for thousands of years. Here's the data and the science that we have to explain it now. What's the connection between the two? Is there any truth that we can find? Is there any way that, like, knowing both of these is greater than the sum of the individual parts,
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of modern science really is storytelling, but with data.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you go to explore in your Exolore podcast, and what's the URL for that, by the way?
It's exolorepod.com.
exolorepod.com. Thank you. The Exolore podcast, when you explore this creative possibility of other worlds or science fiction, how does the process of science inform the imaginative and creative process like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, it starts with process. So I know, as a scientist who has had many illuminating conversations with people in other disciplines, that there's a kind of waterfall effect to how the world has come to be. So the planet formed, and then life emerged, biology and evolution happened, and then culture happened because of our brains, our psychology. So that's the sequence that things actually happen in. And so when I'm building worlds and when I'm teaching other people how to build worlds, I tell them to create things in that same sequence. So figure out the environment of your world and then go to biology and then go to culture in that order. And I think that facts are really important because it kind of removes some of the pressure of creativity. If you're just staring at a blank screen and you're trying to create a world and you don't know where to start, and there's so many possibilities, then using facts kind of constrains that in a way that I find really comforting. If that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. The facts ground you. The facts, the flesh out, they make the world real because we live in a world of things that you can see and touch and taste and smell and hear.
Yeah. So, for example, I was building a creepy world a few months ago for this game designer, and I wanted it to feel like a forest, but a really creepy forest where the trees bled. I wanted it to look like the trees were bleeding. And so I was trying to figure out what type of tree to put on this world. I could make up a new one, or I could use one that people are already familiar with, which is helpful when you're telling stories. And so I did research on what different tree sap color is. And I found that nutmeg trees have reddish sap. And so I used nutmeg trees in this world, which meant it was like this creepy bleeding forest, but it also smelled like Christmas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll never think of Christmas the same way again. Related to that, I have a question here from the Space Cadets. This is from Arjan on YouTube. Do you find yourself critiquing planets in sci-fi books and movies?
All the time. It's actually a problem. My college roommate's family refuses to watch sci-fi movies with me these days because I ruined Gravity for them. Like, they call Gravity the movie that Moya ruined. So I'm very critical. I try not to be.
This is the Sandra Bullock movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
With George Clooney, I think.
George Clooney, that's right.
Yeah. But I also, I don't want to be, I don't know if I can swear here. I don't want to be a jerk. And so I'm not going to like ruin a movie if someone is like, hey, Moya, don't do that. Or, hey, Moya, I really like this. Let's not do that. I also don't ruin movies that are obviously not real. So like, I'm not going to sit there and critique Galaxy Quest or Futurama. Like, no one's looking at that thinking that it's an educational thing.
So what do you think is, besides Gravity, what do you think is the most egregious movie out there, or just more generally, like, what are the most egregious sins that movies and books can make when they try to create worlds and present them as authentic?
One example that comes to mind is Raised by Wolves, which is a show that just came out on HBO Max, either late last year. And it was supposed to be set on a real planet, Kepler 22b, I think, which has data on it. Like, you can go to the NASA Exoplanet Archive and look up data about this planet. But when you look at the data and you look at how the show presented it, they're totally different worlds. It would have been a lot better, I think, if Raised by Wolves just hadn't mentioned the name of the planet or like said that they were using a totally made up one. So that bothers me. Other things that bother me a lot are humanoid aliens being everywhere. Some universes explain it really well, like Stargate. I'm binging Stargate right now. They explain it really well. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Stargate. One of the Space Cadets, Cool Worlds, just said, oh, I know Moya. She has a fascinatingly unique skill set, blending astro with mythology. P.S. Ask her about Stargate.
Yeah.
So what's up with Stargate, Moya, huh?
Well, I am near the end of season 4. I think I started watching about 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I'm loving it. I watched a little bit of it when I was a kid growing up with my mom, but I think it's so well done. I am planning on letting Stargate inspire a lot of season 2 of Exolore, building out some of the worlds that the SG-1 team visits in the show, even talking about some of the ways that the show was made. There are really cool languages in the show, and I would love to talk to a linguist about how you actually develop a fictional language for a world that you're working on. So I have nothing but love for Stargate.
Do you have plans, and this is another Space Cadet question again from Arjan, do you have plans to bring in scientists from other fields like linguists or biologists or geologists or even economists to help flesh out these worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I almost never have other astronomers on the show because I figure, we can only really scratch the surface of the worlds that we build because each episode is about an hour long. And so I figure if we're only being that superficial, then I probably have enough astronomy knowledge to cut it. And so I bring on other people. I've had psychologists, neuroscientists, zooarchaeologists. That was a really cool episode.
Love it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of people for different backgrounds, I think, make the show a lot more interesting than if it was a bunch of astronomers trying to build out planets.
Oh yeah, no one wants to listen to a show hosted by a bunch of astronomers, except for the weekly space hangout, of which you are a regularly appearing contributor.
I am, yeah, but that's not building worlds. That's talking about cool space facts, which is very different. Requires a different skill set. You would know. You were a part of it, weren't you?
I was. I have great memories of my time. They called me the Kraken on there, as in release the Kraken, because I would, and it still happens on this show, when like a bad science story comes out that's overhyped or wrong, and like I just tear into it and talk about this. It always ends up being a discussion about statistics, because that's what 90% of science is about. Pivoting a little bit, I have another question. A lot of space kids are asking so many cool questions tonight. Infinite Monkey over on YouTube is asking, is astrology folklore?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, folklore has a really broad definition. I consider folklore to be the collection of stories shared by a culture. And culture is also very widely defined. So yeah, astrology is absolutely folklore. And I think that in the same way that I think myths were early or like served the same purpose as science, astrology served not totally, but one purpose that it served was like getting people to pay attention to the stars and the night sky.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Speaking of stories and books, rumor has it that you're writing a book.
Rumor has it right.
All right. Tell us about the book.
It's tentatively called The Unauthorized Biography of the Milky Way. I think I'm going to change it to Pay Attention to Me. The
Great
book,
title.
Thank you. The book is about the formation and evolutionary history of the Milky Way, but I'm writing it from the galaxy's perspective, as if it's writing its own autobiography. And so I'm spending a lot of time thinking about, what would it be like to be a galaxy that's existed for more than 10 billion years, knowing that you're going to live for another, like trillion years, depending on how the universe ends. And so that's been really fun.
That is so cool. I can't wait to read it. And then I can interview you again when it comes out and it's published. So that's a very easy excuse. Nancy wants to know, have you ever considered using Minecraft as an aid to build these worlds?
I have considered it. I would absolutely love to, but I don't know how to Minecraft. There was a brief live show by one of the co-founders of Caveat, Ben Lilly. Caveat's this really cool, or it was this really cool science communication space in New York. And his show, Ben's show, was building out worlds on Minecraft. So it would be maybe Caveat, we could do a little crossover.
It was super cool. Yeah. I did events with them. I'm unfortunately, the COVID pandemic really hit them hard. Just like many other live venues. It used to be a go-to place. Like if you needed something cool and nerdy to do on a random night in New York, you go to Caveat. But sadly, I'm hopefully they will return to the scene someday soon. Hopefully. So what are your plans post PhD? Are you doing the postdoc game? Are you going to a lab? Are you gonna like explode into the science communication scene? Am I gonna work for you in a few years?
I don't know about that last part, but the plan is to explode into the science communication scene. So I'll defend in April, and then I'll have some time to really plan out season 2 of Exolore and really get all of my ducks in a row there so that I can make it the best version of itself. And I'm teaching my world building class again in the summer. So you can learn how to use facts to build fictional worlds. If you're working on a story or a game or a script or whatever. And I will be working on writing the book. That takes me out to about a year from now. Beyond that, I have no idea.
You know what? There's no point in planning out further than a year.
Yeah. I'd love to host my own TV show one day, though. That's the goal.
Yeah, too bad the second season of the new Cosmos already took the name Possible Worlds.
Yeah.
So you got to think, what is it going to be? Alternative worlds? Different worlds?
Yeah.
Like Possible Worlds is already taken.
I know. And Netflix had Alien Worlds come out last year.
Alien Worlds.
Which was so good. I was so mad when I saw the trailer for it. I was like, oh, they're doing ExoLore, but like better because it's Netflix, you know?
Because they have money and a budget.
Yeah.
No. This is my advice to you. There's so many times you will be discouraged because you'll think someone already did your idea, but you know what? It doesn't matter because no one has your perspective and no one has your voice on any topic. And so you always bring something new to the table.
Gonna write that down and tape it to the back of my wall by my desk.
No, it's science communication is a very, very strange world. Yeah. I could, speaking of strange worlds, I could go on for a half hour, but this is me interviewing you. In our last few minutes, how have you seen your journey in science communication? Both how have the public received your efforts to communicate and share science in this very cool way? And then how have your peers done it? I know you still need to defend your dissertation. So, if you don't want to dish all the dirt, that's okay. But wait until the signatures and then we'll have you come back on. You can tell the real story. But just
okay.
what have you seen?
Well, the reaction from my department, and I'm being honest here, not just saying it, to stay safe. But my department's been really supportive of my science communication work. My advisor does a lot of science communication himself. His name's David Kipping, and he has the Cool Worlds YouTube channel. So that question may have been from him. But even if they don't necessarily understand all the SciComm work that I want to do, they've definitely been supportive. And I'm just really excited to be getting into SciComm at a time when there are a lot of other cool young people getting into SciComm. People like Ashley Walker and Serafina Nance and just like other people, Keyshawn Ivory, like people who are doing amazing communication work, and we can lean on each other and build off of each other's stuff. And that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question before you go. What's your favorite kind of cheese?
That's the most important question you've asked all night. Gonna go with smoked Gouda.
Smoked Gouda for the win. An excellent refined choice. Moya, where can people find more about you?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is GoAstroMo, a lot easier to spell than my first name. And you can follow ExoLore. The handle is ExoLorePod, Twitter and Instagram. And in my website, you said earlier, is MoiaMcTier.com, which has all of the other links in case you just want to remember one place to go. Yeah.
MoiaMcTier.com. Moya, thank you so much for sharing this half hour with us. It was an absolute pleasure to talk with you, and I'm sure we will be following your career very closely.
Well, thanks. Thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you.
It's been a treat.
All right. No, the real treat is the cheese that I'm about to eat.
True.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was fun, audience. That was really fun. But, a good interview makes me so hungry. I'm so hungry right now because I've been staring at this cheese this whole time while I was paying attention to Moya and our very cool guest. So I'm going to eat some cheese and talk about some science. Our cheese today is brought to you by domscheese.com. That's DOMS cheese.com. Yes, they ship nationwide and probably worldwide if you asked them. If you don't know, I'm unwrapping the cheese. That's it. If you don't know if they'll ship to your particular location, just shoot them an email or call them. They're great. They'll respond. They will send you some cheese. I noticed recently that they're promoting raclette kits, with that melty Swiss cheese, and it comes with a box with like potatoes and cornichon and like crackers. It's like, yeah, get a raclette kit and have it shipped to you, because that's awesome. And as soon as I unwrapped today's cheese from Dom's Cheese, the room filled with this amazing scent from my telaggio that they gave to me. Look at that telaggio. Look at that. This is a soft, semi-soft cheese from Italy. It's washed rind. It is has a very, very thin crust. Like you can see, like this rind is incredibly thin, a nice creamy texture, but it holds together. Taleggio is one of my favorite cheeses. Well, all the cheeses are one of my favorite cheeses, let's be honest. And so I know this is going to be a treat. It's this wonderful aroma. It's a very smelly cheese, but not in a bad way. It's just like, it makes itself known. Like it walks into the room and says, hey guys, I'm Taleggio and I'm here to entertain you. Such an interesting combination of flavors, because you have that. What's interesting about Taleggio is you expect it to go in one direction. You expect it to go like really deep and dark, like a really solid brie. But then it like instead like milds up and lightens up like an Adam or like a mild Gouda. And a lot of things when they try to strike the balance between two worlds, fail. But not Taleggio. Thank you, Dom's Cheese. DomsCheese.com. I promised to answer some Space Cadet questions. I wanted to talk about today the NASA's test launch of the SLS. It failed after a minute. They reached a fault and they had to shut the thing off. I mean, it didn't blow up, which is a plus, I guess. But also it didn't work for the full 8-minute run, which is a bad thing. What is the state? Maybe next week we'll talk about the possible state of where is the SLS going? Where is the Artemis program going with the new Biden administration? Let's just save that till next week. But I do want to answer one Space Cadet question. We have a question from Physics Guruji. Good morning. It's 6:43 a.m. in India. What are you doing up so early? Can you tell me a little bit about the presence of supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxy? Why is it there? We think that every galaxy in the universe has a giant supermassive black hole in its core. We aren't exactly sure why. We do know that they co-evolve, that every galaxy has a supermassive black hole. Every supermassive black hole has a galaxy associated with this. They grow together, so as the galaxy gets bigger, so does the supermassive black hole. How did it start? Were the black holes there first, then the galaxies like accumulated around them? Or did the galaxies just accumulate enough matter and then eventually you end up with a giant black hole in its center? We're not exactly sure which came first. We do know that they both appear extremely early in the history of the universe. When our universe is like 500 million years old, we already have galaxies. We already have supermassive black holes. We've got one. It's called Sagittarius A star, and it's a treat. Listen, if you want to support the show, go to MoyaMcTier.com. That's the best way to support the show and support her outreach work. But if that's not enough for you, go to patreon.com/pmsutter. It's your contributions that keep the show going. I really do appreciate it. Also, if you're listening live on YouTube right now, you can do a super chat and contribute right now any amount you wish at this very moment. Listen, thank you for joining me on this voyage of space radio. I'm Paul Sutter, and this show is brought to you by you. That's patreon.com/pmsutter. Also brought to you by Dom's Cheese, DOMScheese.com, and also brought to you by Moya McTier for providing all the exceedingly interesting content this evening. Thank you, Nancy Graziano, for producing the show, arranging the guests, and wrangling the Space Cadets. Catch the live stream every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Visit spaceradioshow.com for all the links. And of course, thanks again, Space Cadets, for listening. See you next week. And remember, science is for sharing. End of transmission.